Hello, friends. If you are 60 or older and you fly even once a year, there are 6 airport rules in effect right now that can delay you, deny you at the checkpoint, or leave you overseas with a medical bill and no coverage at all. The Real ID enforcement deadline that kept getting pushed back arrived on May 7th, 2025. It is live. Nearly 1 in 5 travelers were still not presenting acceptable ID when it took effect. And the foreign travel emergency cap on many Medigap plans is $50,000 for your entire life, while original Medicare in most situations pays nothing once you leave the country. Nobody explained all 6 in one place because none of it is automatic. These 6 rules say later is over. Hello, friends. Grab a pen or open the notes on your phone. I'm going to walk you through 6 current rules and airline policies, one at a time. Put a mark next to every one that applies to you, because if you are over 60 and you fly even once a year, at least one of these already does. This is not rumor, this is not social media panic, and this is not a future deadline somebody keeps pushing back. These are rules that are active right now, and they have already started catching people at the airport. Before I go through all 6, if you are watching this and you are not subscribed, understand what this channel does. Airport rules change. Airline assistance pages change. Medicare rules change. The people subscribed here hear about it before they find out at the curb, the kiosk, or the checkpoint. Subscribe now and let's get into it. Now, before we go further, I need to address something, because people hear a topic like this and immediately sort themselves into one of 2 groups. The first group travels enough to assume they already know the airport routine. You have flown dozens of times. You know how the line works. You figure if something changed, you would have heard about it. The second group flies rarely, maybe once or twice a year, and you assume the system will explain itself when you show up. Both of those assumptions are wrong about at least one item on this list, and on every single one, I will tell you exactly which group it helps most and why. One of these items helps the traveler who thought being comfortable meant being prepared. Another one helps the traveler who thought every convenience at the airport now costs extra money. And stay to the end, because the last one is not the rule that stops you at the checkpoint. It is the one that can leave you overseas with Medicare paying none of it. Let's start. Number 1. Real ID is already live, and the 2026 fallback costs money. Here is the misconception. They kept postponing it for years, so they will probably wave people through again. They are not waving people through again. Full Real ID enforcement began on May 7th, 2025. That means every airline passenger 18 and older, including TSA PreCheck members, must now present a Real ID compliant license, a passport, or another acceptable form of ID at the checkpoint. If you show up with a non-compliant state license and no backup ID, you are looking at extra screening, delays, and possible denial of boarding. Not guaranteed denial, but possible denial. And when TSA says possible, that is not a word you want attached to your vacation. Now, TSA did introduce something called Confirm ID in February of 2026. Think of it as a paid identity verification attempt. The fee is $45. For a couple, that is $90. And here's what TSA says about it in their own language. There is no guarantee Confirm ID can verify your identity, so you are paying $45 for a maybe. Who does this one help most? Both groups. If you are on a fixed income, you are more likely to still be traveling on that old standard license. If you are comfortable, you are more likely to assume your passport is somewhere in a drawer at home, even though you have been handing over your driver's license out of habit for years. Here's the action step. Before your next domestic flight, go to tsa.gov/real-id and check whether your current card is compliant. If it is not, decide right now whether your passport or another acceptable ID is your safer backup. And if you want to understand the Confirm ID fallback, go to tsa.gov/tsa-confirm-id. But do not treat a $45 gamble as a plan. That is number 1. That is the checkpoint rule everybody heard about. The next one is why so many people still miss it anyway. Number 2. The card in your wallet may look fine and still not be the right one. The misconception here is simple. The DMV renewed my license, so it must already be the travel version. That is not how this works. A renewal is not an upgrade. Your license can be brand new, fully valid for driving, and still be non-compliant for air travel. Here's how to check. A compliant card is typically marked with a gold or black star in the upper corner. Some states issue an enhanced ID instead. If your card does not have that star and does not say enhanced, it is not the one TSA is looking for. Getting the compliant version usually means an in-person trip to the DMV. You will need to prove your identity and date of birth, prove your address with 2 documents from 2 different sources, and prove lawful status. The federal requirement for a paper Social Security card was removed by the Real ID Modernization Act, but your state may still ask for it, so check your own state's DMV checklist before you go. And here's the part that catches people. In Arizona, the state advises at least 2 weeks for the card to arrive by mail. In Montana, TSA outreach said up to 3 weeks. And in at least some states, the temporary paper card you get at the DMV counter is not accepted at the TSA checkpoint. So waiting until the week of your flight is not cutting it close. It is gambling. The action step. Go to tsa.gov/real-id/u-real-id-ready. Use the readiness tool, then pull your own state DMV checklist before you book, or before you rely on that license. Build in a multi-week buffer. That is number 2. Now some of you are thinking, fine, but I'm 75. Doesn't security already go easier on me? A little. Not in the way most people think. Number 3. What travelers 75 and older already get, and what they still do not get. The misconception is that once you turn 75, you basically have pre-check. You do not. Here is what you actually get. If you are 75 or older, TSA allows you to leave your shoes on during screening. That is real. But you are still required to remove light jackets for the imaging scanner. You are still in the standard line. You are still pulling your laptop out and your liquids bag out unless you separately enrolled in PreCheck. TSA PreCheck is a different program. It costs $85 or less for 5 years, which works out to about $17 a year. PreCheck lets you keep on your shoes, your belt, and your light jacket. You leave your electronics and your 311 liquids in the bag. And about 99% of PreCheck passengers wait less than 10 minutes. Who does this help most? The fixed income traveler. This is the item where you might be about to spend $85 under a false premise. If your only frustration is bending down to take your shoes off and you are 75 or older, that problem is already solved for free. But if you want the full package, belts, jackets, electronics in the bag, shorter line, then PreCheck earns its money. Just do not pay it thinking the age accommodation does not exist. The action step. Go to tsa.gov/PreCheck and to the TSA screening page for passengers 75 and older. Compare what you already get for free against what PreCheck adds, then decide. That is number 3. Everything so far has been about the line you stand in. The next rule can stop the trip after the line is already behind you. Number 4. The airline can still stop you after TSA if the medical paperwork is wrong. Now, everything I have covered so far sounded like checkpoint friction. ID problems, screening hassles, long lines. This one is different. I need you to hear this one carefully. You can clear TSA, walk to your gate, sit down with your coffee, and still have the airline tell you that you are not flying today because the medical paperwork was not handled in time. The misconception. If I can walk into the airport, I can fly. Some airlines require a medical certificate if you have had recent surgery, a recent hospitalization, or if you need supplemental oxygen or have certain active medical conditions. United Airlines, for example, says a required medical note must be dated within 72 hours of departure, and then United says the review of that note may take 2 to 3 days. Do the math on that. A note dated within 72 hours, but a review window of 2 to 3 days. If you are discharged from the hospital on Monday and your flight is Thursday, that timeline is already broken before you start. This is not about a fee. This is about timing, and that is what makes it dangerous. Nobody tells you this at discharge. Nobody flags it at check-in until it is too late. Now, separately from the airline, TSA has a program called TSA Cares. It provides checkpoint assistance for travelers with disabilities or medical conditions, things like a passenger support specialist who helps you through screening. TSA Cares asks you to call at least 72 hours before your flight. The number is 855-787-2227. Who does this help most? Both groups. This is not about money. It is about medical fragility and timing. The action step. If you recently had surgery, were hospitalized, need oxygen, or have an active medical concern, call the airline first. Use these words. I recently had surgery or a hospitalization. Do you require a medical certificate to fly? How recent must the note be, and where do I submit it? Then call TSA Cares at 855-787-2227 at least 72 hours before departure. That is number 4. And if your problem is not paperwork but mobility, the next section matters more than anything I have said so far. Number 5. If you use a wheelchair or mobility device, ask early and know the 3 letters CRO. The misconception here is that wheelchair service at the airport is just a courtesy, and if something goes wrong, you argue with the gate agent and hope for the best. That is not the rule anymore. On January 16, 2025, the Department of Transportation finalized a new wheelchair and scooter rule for air travel, and it changed the math on what happens when things go wrong. Here is what the rule says. If the airline damages your wheelchair or scooter while the device is in their custody, the airline is now presumed liable. Not, we will look into it. Not, file a claim and wait. Presumed liable, up to the original purchase price of the device. If your power wheelchair cost $4,000, that is the airline's exposure. This is not a baggage fee problem. This is the full value of the device. And here is what most travelers in this situation do not know. Every airline is required to have someone called a Complaint Resolution Official, a CRO, available by phone or in person during operating hours. That person's job is to handle disability-related complaints on the spot. You do not have to wait for a letter. You do not have to accept a shrug at the gate. You ask for the CRO. Who does this help most? The fixed-income traveler. A damaged mobility device can be financially devastating if you do not know the rule that puts liability on the carrier. And a missed wheelchair request can mean sitting at the gate while your connection leaves without you. Now, requesting wheelchair assistance itself is straightforward, but none of it is automatic. Nobody sees you walk slowly through the terminal and sends a chair. You have to ask. American Airlines says you can request a courtesy wheelchair when booking, in the app, or on arrival. United says to request wheelchair service during booking. Southwest says assistance is available curb to gate and between connections. But in every case, you are the one who initiates it. The earlier you ask, the better the odds it is actually waiting for you. The action step. Request wheelchair or mobility assistance during booking or in managed trip as early as possible. And if anything goes wrong at the airport, if your device is damaged, if assistance never shows, if you are treated in a way that violates your rights, say these exact words. I need wheelchair assistance from curb to gate and between connections, and if there is any disability-related problem, I want the complaint resolution official. If you need to escalate beyond the airport, the DOT Disability Hotline is 1-800-778-4838. That is number 5. That one protects your body and your equipment at the airport. The last one protects your wallet after the plane leaves the country. Number 6. Original Medicare can follow you to the airport and leave you completely overseas. This is the one I told you to stay for, and it is the one most likely to cost the comfortable retiree the most money, because the comfortable retiree is the one most likely to book an overseas trip assuming Medicare works the way health insurance is supposed to work. Here is the misconception. Medicare is health insurance, so at least it handles emergencies if I get sick abroad. In most situations, Medicare will not pay for health care or supplies you receive outside the United States. Not reduced coverage. Not partial coverage. In most cases, none of it. Medicare itself says you may want to consider travel insurance because your coverage abroad is limited. That is Medicare's own language. Now, some people have a Medigap supplement plan, and some of those plans include what is called a foreign travel emergency benefit. Here is how it works. After a $250 yearly deductible, a qualifying Medigap plan pays 80% of billed charges for certain emergency care abroad. The lifetime cap on that benefit is $50,000, and the benefit only applies if the emergency begins during the first 60 days of your trip and Medicare does not otherwise cover the care. A viewer wrote to me about a trip she almost took on the assumption that Medicare follows you everywhere. It does not. Her name is Elaine, 69, a retired school secretary outside Tampa, Florida. She and her husband were about to book an overseas cruise. No travel insurance. No idea what Medicare would or would not cover if something serious happened on the ship or in a foreign port. Before the trip, she checked. She called 1-800-MEDICARE and her supplement insurer. She found out she had original Medicare only, with a Medigap plan that did include the foreign travel emergency benefit. So she at least had something, but she also learned exactly what something meant. Here is an illustrative scenario built from the official rule. Say the emergency bill abroad comes to $5,250. After the $250 deductible, $5,000 remains. The Medigap plan pays 80% of that, which is $4,000. Elaine's out-of-pocket cost, $1,250. Without any qualifying Medigap plan, on original Medicare alone, her coverage for that same bill in most situations would have been zero. Not $1,250 out of pocket, $5,250 out of pocket. And that $50,000 lifetime cap is not per trip, it is total. For every foreign emergency you ever have, combined, for the rest of your life. Who does this help most? The comfortable retiree. This is the surprise beneath the benefit item. The person who can afford an overseas trip is exactly the person most exposed to Medicare's foreign coverage gap. And the person who assumes their Medicare supplement handles everything is exactly the person who has never read the 60-day window or the $50,000 ceiling. The action step. Before any international booking, and especially before any trip longer than 60 days, check whether you have original Medicare only, a Medigap plan with foreign emergency coverage, or neither. Go to medicare.gov/coverage/travel-outside-the-u.s. or medicare.gov/health-drug-plans/Medigap, or call 1-800-MEDICARE and say, I am traveling outside the United States. Does my current coverage include foreign emergency medical care? And if it does, what deductible, percentage, and lifetime cap apply? That is number 6. So here's the full picture. The driver's license that may not be enough anymore, and the $45 fallback that still may not work. The Real ID application itself, where the missing document or the mailing delay is what beats you. The limited screening break travelers 75 and older already get, and the paid pre-check they may not need for the reason they think. The medical certificate rule that can stop the trip after you already packed. The wheelchair and mobility device rights that are stronger than most people realize, and the 3 letters, CRO, that put someone in charge of fixing it. And the foreign medical gap where original Medicare can pay none of it, while a qualifying Medigap plan still caps out at $50,000 for your entire life. Every single one of those is already in effect, and not one of them is automatic. The TSA does not assume your old license is close enough. Your DMV does not put the compliant card in your wallet automatically. Age 75 does not automatically give you full pre-check. Your airline does not infer from your appearance that you are medically cleared. The gate agent does not automatically become your disability advocate unless you ask for the CRO. And Medicare does not follow you overseas just because you have carried it for years. Being old enough to qualify for the trip and actually being ready for the trip are two completely different things. The gap between them is information. So here is what I am asking you to do. Think of one person, a parent, an aunt, a neighbor from church. The couple on your block who still use the same driver's license they used before the deadline moved again and again. Send them this video, not because they are careless, but because the odds are very good that at least one of these 6 rules is going to surprise them, and it is better to find out here than at the airport. Subscribe, share this with someone you know who is flying this year, and I'll see you in the next one.